turn your dial. Dapper Don's here to make you smile with a co-host sharp and riff so true. We've got the laughs, the rants, the view. What's going on? Oh, what's the word? Indy's the city where we'll be heard. From Monument Circle to Broad Ripple on. What's going on with Dapper Don? So grab your coffee, Hoosiers, and let's get to it. 'Cause we're in the house!
What's going on? It's Dapper Don, and I'm excited to welcome you all back. Crafting a vast, intricate fantasy world is something that will never stop being cool to me. The ability to create unbreakable systems and rules that you can choose to enforce or shirk is something that gives every writer just that little chill up their back. But I will admit there becomes a time in writing where the lore becomes a liability. Because if the hero always slays the dragon and that's it, that's a cool aesthetic, but where's the substance? Why is the hero slaying the dragon? What made the dragon evil? Is there someone influencing either party? What's the motivation? That's the juicy shit that gets people obsessed. That's the reason Sonic and Dragon Ball and One Piece and all the anime and all the video games you can think of have such passionate fandoms. It's the relationships. Sure, their powers are cool too. Fast hedgehog, energy blasting monkey, and rubber boy. You know, that's cool, but it's not enough to make a story. Lone wolf hero that beats robots to save his friends. Man willing to sacrifice everything to save his planet because his friends are there. And the literal embodiment of freedom, though, now those are stories. And there's no one who understands this principle better than our guest tonight, author J.F. Monroe. She's not just a fantasy author. She's also a fandom brain maniac just like yours truly, who knows the key to writing an addictive narrative is the complexities of human relationships. So I figured we could spiral together for an hour or two and see if we can make an episode about it. I don't know. Great to have you, Miss Monroe.
Thank you so much for having me. Great intro, by the way. That was awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. If it wasn't scripted, we'd be having a much different conversation. But so tell me, what fandoms are you actually currently a part of?
Gosh, there's so many. Right now, I'll take it topic by topic. So in anime,
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty obsessed with Demon Slayer at the moment. That's just like I've watched anime for a very long time, but Demon Slayer is the one that's got me going right now. I'm waiting for part 2 of Infinity Castle to come out. I'm pretty excited about it. I got some theories, but I'm trying not to get spoiled. As far as video games, they just dropped the new platform for a couple of games coming out. I'm really excited about like that Witcher 3 DLC that's coming
Mm-hmm.
out. We got some co-op games coming out. Dave the Diver prequel, which I'm pretty excited about.
Okay.
What else? And then just like a whole bunch of TV and movies. I'm planning to see Masters of the Universe this weekend, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Okay. Gotcha. If you had to pick one in any media that you would say is your favorite that you are actively like pining for new releases of, which one would you say it is?
What in terms of like I am obsessed with video games. I could sit down for hours and just continuously play video games. I dabble in the horror of it. So like I play
Mm-hmm.
games, co-op games like Dead by Daylight or The Forest, Five Nights at Freddy, things like that. But I could play anything.
Okay.
I love video games.
Okay. Well, let's jump into, let's just say FNAF to stay on brand over here.
Sure.
What makes the relationships in something like that so compelling, do you think?
What for Five Nights at Freddy? It's really the lore of Five Nights at Freddy is so ridiculously intricate to me because when you start playing the games, you got to kind of like pass certain chapters, I guess, or certain days, however they do it,
Mm-hmm.
to get a little bit more of the lore. So it doesn't just like throw it all out there in the beginning. Like this is what you need to know and this is how it's prepped. Like no, you learn as you go and I find that ridiculously enticing.
Right.
In anything, like in anything that I watch, but Five Nights at Freddy does it really, really well. And also it's just wild. It's just a really, really good time. It takes itself exactly how it should. And I think that's why it's so
Yes. And what's interesting about this is that it could just be a generic slasher story, but you have all these connections You have all this like this person's the son of this one and the brother of this one and
Yep,
it's like they're
exactly.
yep. And you've got all this hidden communication going on between characters.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
So do you think that like if we're talking about The Witcher, do you think the franchise would still hold up if you only had its base concept?
That's a great question. I would say like a tentative yes, just because its base concept. I mean, listen, it's been done before, but
Mhm.
the way The Witcher carries itself and the way it explores that concept, I think is unique. Like the Wild Hunt has been done before, but the way The Witcher does it and how it involves the Witchers in it, which is like that real lore, that's what's so good about it. So base concept
Yes.
tentative, yes, but the way The Witcher plays on that base concept is what makes it so outstandingly ridiculously good.
So what you're saying is that no matter what franchise we cover, it's not it's the flavor, it's the seasoning that they put on it that really makes it so addictive. But
Yes.
like why do you think we get obsessed with stuff like that?
I think that we all need a little bit of a break sometimes from like our daily lives, whatever we might be going through, whatever's going on in the world right now. And so we turn to things like that because we just want to get away, right? I know that when I started to write these books, when I figured out that they were actually going to be multiple books in this trilogy, I did it because I was looking for an opportunity to just escape, not forever, obviously, but just for a little while, just to kind of like get out of my head and
Mhm.
dive into something fun and weird and wild and a little scary. And it was awesome, right? Because then I could just go back to my daily life right after. I could put the video game down, I could shut off the TV, I could stop typing the story and go back and just do what I got to do. But the fact that I could pick up the book or turn on the TV and just go into almost like a different world for a little while, I think that there's something very seductive about that. And I think that that's what really captures people.
Right. And because of the fact that we're humans, when we're going into those different worlds, we're not focused on, you know, which elf pays taxes to which breed of lichen. We're focused on, we're focused on the relationships in that world. How do you form bonds? How do you start businesses? How do you gain trust? How do you lose trust? That sort of thing.
Yeah, 100%. I could tell you right now that a huge part of like my approach to storytelling when I'm shaping those pivotal moments in the story, my writing comes from navigating those real life pressures, right? Like self-doubt and the feeling of
Mhm.
being very ordinary, a very ordinary person that is expected to handle all of these wild and crazy things. So yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
Yep. And now I just want to kind of dive into some of the relationships that we see across all forms of media that seem to attract just the rabid fandoms that we see today and what makes those relationships so compelling. So, the first relationship that I've been seeing increasingly in modern indie media is well, for lack of a better term, the smiling fuckwad and the emotionally vulnerable pipsqueak. Why do you think that is so compelling? You know
Oh
what
my
I'm talking
gosh.
about, don't you?
I have an idea. Yeah. I think I'm gonna try to do it opposite. So I'm gonna take the emotional pipsqueak first. I think that we all like the idea of like an underdog, right? And
Right.
so, for lack of a better word, the emotional pipsqueak is that like imperfect person that is trying their absolute best to navigate whatever world they're in. And they carry all of these really, really, I'm sorry, they usually carry all of these really relatable feelings that, like, the reader or whatever the audience is can relate to. And so the
Mhm.
emotional pipsqueak comes like that outlet almost for like grief and fear and guilt and love and the idea that look at this ordinary person who's about to go on this incredible journey or whatever they're about to do because you know that yes they're that emotional pipsqueak but they got to have that pivot right where all of the things kind of land around them and they go through it. And
Mhm.
then please quote it again. You said smiling what did you call it?
The smiling fuckwad,
Smiling oh god.
also
We
known as
always
the grinning shit stick. I mean,
we
take your
need
pick.
listen, we need that character. That is the quintessential morally gray asshole is what we know about in fantasy. That's usually how we determine them.
Yes.
And so there's 2 ways you can go with that, right? You can keep them, the shit stick, and they can just go through the whole narrative, just being that person that gets on your nerves and drives you crazy. And hopefully at the end, they're taken care of one way or another. But what's really great about this smiling shit stick is their redemption, which I would assume is their redemption arc, right? So they start off as untouchable. Nothing bothers me. I'm nonchalant. I'm kind of an asshole. I'm going to give you a really hard time. And then, just like the, emotional pipsqueak, they go through a pivot midway through whatever narrative we're talking about, right? Book, TV, video game, anime. And they become usually incredibly integral to the story just as much as the main character, which is the emotional pipsqueak. And so you get to kind of see how from different spheres, how they kinda take on different challenges by the way that they act, but by the end, they're usually best friends, and they usually have gone through incredible transformations.
Yes. And what's interesting about this relationship is that it's one of the easiest relationships that you can do wrong if you start to love the smiling douchebag a little too much.
Yeah,
Because it's very easy. It's like, it's this cool, detached guy that's always smiling no matter what, not afraid to say what he thinks, and there's like a deepness underneath. But if you just keep him in the same state and you just keep the emotional pipsqueak as the sole victim, eh,
exactly.
I don't know.
You're absolutely
It's
right.
usually, yeah, I mean, it's usually just more compelling when there's some change, when you got some hints of a bigger story behind the smile, or when they're getting some kind of comeuppance. It's like, I get it, you know, we've all fangirled over our resident smiling evil person, but
Yes.
it's like a lot of that comes from the fact that they get smacked down by every other character they thought they were above.
That is correct. Yeah. That's why you could always go 2 ways. You could keep them, exactly the same, which you're right, it tends to get a little boring, or you can give them layers and actually allow them to grow into something bigger, something better.
Right. Absolutely. Now, this is something that this next one is something that I found is very it is become increasingly prevalent in media as something morally ambiguous rather than just cut it off, and that's toxic codependency in any type of relationship, family, couples, anything like that. In media, it's portrayed as increasingly a morally gray type of situation. Why do you think that that's so compelling as a morally gray situation instead of a just straight cut them off?
I think that's a great question. I think that people treat it as morally gray because when you're watching those types of shows or you're reading those types of books, there is a very I guess the word like it's this isn't the word I'm looking for, but like there's a seductive feeling of feeling like you could change the person, right?
Mhm.
So like, yeah, they're morally gray, but I can fix them, or I'm excited to see how they change from like this morally gray person to this better person. So I just think that it's all in the way you write the scene or write the chapter of this individual. Like what their arc is going to be is going to determine how they're well received. I've seen a lot of media, like especially books, where toxic codependency is it's applauded almost. And I just think that you can indulge in media because you know that you would never this is my hope. This is my hope that you would never stand for it in real life, right? So it's almost like a vice to people.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, "You know what? I can enjoy it quietly over here and read about it, and it's crazy, and it's outlandish, and it's wild, but then I'll just go about my life, and I'll be with my hopefully loving husband or loving wife, and they're not doing all of these really wild and crazy things that these books or these TV shows are kind of,
Right.
sensationalizing."
Yeah. I kind of understand where you're going. Just be careful because some vices come in 50 shades.
100%.
I'm just,
You're not wrong.
yeah. What about a good found family? What makes that so compelling?
I love found family. I that's a weakness of mine, in the best way. I love found family because when I was growing up, family was family. That was
Hmm.
just what it was. Family with blood. That's it. And when you talk about found family, you start to open your perspective to no, family is not blood. Family doesn't have to be blood at all. Family can be friends. Family can be found along the way as you're older. And it just kind of like broke open this concept of it doesn't have to be the family that you're born into. It could just be somebody that you meet along the way and that they become almost like your soulmate. It doesn't have to be romantic. It could just be you two were meant to kind of be together. I think about some of the found family in media, right? Like Lord of the Rings. They were
Yes.
family. That was a family. That was a found family to the T. They were not blood, but they would die for one another. They went to the journey. They freaking carried each other up to Mordor. Like it was so profound to me, and it's probably one of my favorite themes to write about.
Yes. And what's interesting about found family is that, when we do grow up with blood is blood and that's it, we often get exposed to a certain moral framework that is completely one sided. But with found family, you learn that, oh, this kooky weird guy that likes to drink magic potions just literally sacrificed his life for me. That's more than my own mother would do for me. And she supposedly is the one who's seen me my entire life.
Exactly.
you know
Exactly.
so that's very interesting with that. Here's my favorite type of trope in any media: the odd couple slash the bickering duo. These can be siblings, these can be friends, hell, they can even be a husband and wife thing, although I've seen the siblings and friends thing more often. But what makes that what makes a relationship where they're constantly arguing, even playfully, so compelling?
It's just the banter. It's how it's written. A lot of good books that I've read before, the you could have bickering and it can really come off bad if you don't write it
Mhm.
well. Like if it sounds a little robot, you got to really watch your dialogue there. Even like when you're watching TV, like you got to be careful how the scripts are written because it could come off a bit robotic. If you don't land that banter, then it gets annoying really fast. That's a tricky one because that could turn on you pretty quickly. Constant bickering could be a lot of fun, and it could be playful, and it could be real. It could be enemies to lovers. It could be anything, but you have to really work to nail that banter, nail that dialogue. Like, even if you gotta, like, read your scripts out loud or read your
Right.
your book out loud, you gotta nail that dialogue.
Yes.
That's the key to those successful things.
Well, I okay. I wanna, because I'm curious. Do you kind of have like a way to put into example without shaming a particular franchise, just like a bad version of how this trope looks?
Yes, I can. There is a franchise out there where the banter in this series started off actually really strong. I actually enjoyed the first book. The second
Mm-hmm.
book, I do believe there were other factors involved in it. I believe the author may have been under intense pressure and deadlines and kind of rushed it a little bit. And I think that worked against them. But the dialogue came off very young and
Mm-hmm.
bratty. And it didn't speak the truth of the character of the first book that I read. And so, where in the first book, the character came off ridiculously, like, smart and had common sense, now the character was making these like really dopey decisions, and they were saying these lines that they it made him sound ridiculously young, and especially for this series, that's not the way that this person wanted to go with the character voice. Like you did not want them to go young. That's not how they should have been viewed at all. And so I try to give them grace because it's a hard thing to keep up for one book, let alone several. But it's very noticeable in this series, and it made me put the book down more than once because I'm a very big proponent of dialogue, and, like, I gotta like my characters as I continue the story or else it's not gonna work for me, and they that kind of messed up the character for me a bit.
Yep, yep, and I definitely understand, and I kinda get where you're coming from, like, the banter starts getting bad when it starts feeling out of character, like, if you have somebody and you have another character and they're together and they're constantly calling each other idiots, morons, slapping each other around, that's what you've got the audience used to, then any escalation of that is gonna have to be very careful, and any deviation from that is going to have to be very careful as well. But if you have like two siblings who are relatively close and their bickering doesn't even get to name calling, and then all of a sudden one just blurts out, "You're an idiot," in the second book, you're just like, okay, what? When have they ever acted
Exactly.
like this? You know?
Exactly. Like, just have some respect for your material, right? And I think about this with franchises too. I'm like, just have some respect for the material that is there that you already created. Like there is a way to keep going with it. Don't kind of like don't rush it. Just take your time with it and make sure that it lives up to the hype of the first one that you've written.
Yes. You know, an example of good banter, I think of, you're familiar with God of War, I'm assuming, right?
I very much am. Yes.
I think of the banter between Kratos and Mimir towards the middle of the Ragnarok game where it's just like
Yep.
Mimir will go on these long tangents and start like reprimanding Kratos, and then Kratos just responds with no. And
Yes. It's
it's it's like it's the same thing over and over again. It's just like no. It's cuz I
yep.
want to. It's cuz I said
It's
so.
perfect.
But it
Yes.
works. It works because that's Kratos. He's a man of very few words. Even back before the beard, he wasn't really doing much talking. He was slashing.
Yep.
So it's like
Yes.
so you pair him up with this because Atreus isn't really doing too much to step outside of the norm. He's just trying to father and follow. You pair him up with somebody who's like actively calling him out, which is something that most people would never think to do, and then just have him respond with, "Okay, come on, it's brilliant," and you don't have to do
Yes.
much with that.
No, you don't, and it was twofold with that game because Mimir was
Hmm.
kind of like us, right? And he was kind of like our
Yes.
narrator for what was going on, and so, yeah, he needed to be kinda like the talker. He needed to have those funny comedic moments, and then what made it even funnier was Kratos's response to them because it was so Kratos. They never took Kratos out of character. Like, he would listen to
No.
Mimir, and then he would just answer. Like, that was it. You just got his answer, and that
Yep.
was it, done.
It's like he would respectfully listen because, like, again, Kratos does respect Mimir, but he's also like, I don't, I don't tell me what to do. Just
Exactly.
don't even do it.
Yeah.
So, that's an example of it done right. And so,
Yes.
like, if the relationship suddenly got hostile and then you suddenly had Kratos yelling at Mimir in one game, then you're just like, and there's no escalation, there's nothing that happened. It's just now they're arguing, like arguing. The audience is looking like, okay, what's happening? I thought Kratos had progressed beyond this point. I didn't think
Exactly.
he ever could get to this point.
100%. You gotta show even a man of little words, you have to show the growth in him, and I think they did that series just wonderfully. I'm a big proponent of how they did that and how they even concluded it. I know they just dropped a I don't know if it's a DLC. I
Laufey?
think it's actually an actual game. Yeah, Laufey, and I think that's gonna be great too, but I don't know if Kratos' journey is over just yet, but if it is, I thought they ended it really wonderful. Like, that's how you do a series.
Yes, that is how you do it. And even like that type of dynamic between like villains and henchmen, like you remember the old cartoons. And like people don't like to reference the old cartoons like when they're talking about big giant fantasy worlds, but a lot of that stuff is the basis for it. Like if you look back at some of that stuff, the villain henchman banter is like on point,
It
you
is.
know?
It really is, and funny, like, it's still to this day makes me laugh. And you're right. You catch certain, phrases or certain things that those cartoon villains do that you've seen in media recently. It is just how you tell the story. You said it really great in the beginning of this chat. It's the flavor that you bring to it, right? It's all
Yes.
usually the same underneath, but it is the flavor that you bring to it that really makes it count. And I think that's like the best way to sum it up.
Because I mean, okay, let's think about Samurai Jack's Aku, if you're
Ooh,
familiar with.
I
Yeah,
am.
like that guy is the king of. Wait, what the hell did you do? I don't even want to kill you. I just want to know why you did it.
Yes. Yes. And Samurai Jack did something that I was very skeptical about. They it took a long, long break and then it came
Mm-hmm.
back. And
And it
I
was
was so
better.
worried. Yes, because I was so worried when it came back. I was like, please don't ruin Samurai Jack for us. Like I grew up on that show. Like just leave it alone. It's done. And goes back to like my conversation on like respect the material, right? Like the
Yes.
people that put this together had such respect for that show that it was I would dare say it was almost better than the
Yes.
original Samurai Jack. I couldn't believe Aku was stellar. The new characters they introduced were fantastic, and the old ones that they brought back, it paid such a homage to the
Yes.
original Samurai Jack that I like my mind was blown when I sat down to watch that series. Blown
And
away.
I think the creator Craig McCracken was still behind that one. Now, if you want to know what sharp, witty banter that doesn't veer unlikable looks like, look at any of Craig McCracken's early work: Powerpuff Girls, Foster's
Yep.
Home, Samurai Jack,
Yes.
Wander Over Yonder, which is more of a mid 2010s. But it's like that banter can be sharp, witty, and even spiteful without veering into unlikable. You know,
Yes.
everybody knows that Blue is a douchebag, but you still feel his relationship with Mac is as wholesome because of the fact that even though he can be a douchebag, they're always there for each other.
Exactly. I think that is a really huge call out to if you're writing about characters that are quote unquote unlikable in the beginning, that's totally fine. You are at liberty to do so and they're your characters. So you can honestly do whatever you want, but you gotta give them something that the audience isn't gonna just be like, all right, when are they gonna get killed off? Unless that's like your purpose for them, then by all means go for it. But like if they are an unlikable, let's say main character, like I said, I have to really like a character in order to continue the story. And if I just don't like what I'm reading, like the decisions they make, what they say to people, there has to be something, some kind of humanity to them that I'm like, all right,
Mhm.
I can kind of latch on and relate to this one thing they're doing. Let's see what comes of it. And if something does get born of that, then it's like, okay, great, I'm in. I'm locked in. I love them. This is growth. This is perfect. But like the unlikable line is a real thin line, and you got to be real careful
Yes,
when you're doing that.
absolutely. And then the last thing I think we'll cover before we go on a quick break here is the edgy anti-hero being the dark reflection of the hero trope. Now this one is, I feel like this one's a little bit on the harder end to get wrong, unless you just have a real terrible hero. But why do you think that ends up being so compelling?
Well, the hero itself, I'm going to say something a little controversial, and I don't necessarily mean all heroes, but when you have the quintessential definition of a hero, it's sometimes border on boring, right? Like you want to have a hero that is imperfect, that has flaws, because you want to make them they're like the opposite of a villain, but you still want to make them relatable so that the reader can
Right.
latch on to them in some way. And so therein lies the beauty of the quote unquote anti-hero, right? Who might not do the right thing and be labeled a hero, but does come through, like, never goes full villain. It doesn't do like, doesn't hurt. Usually, like, an anti-hero doesn't hurt, innocents just for the sake of hurting innocents. Sometimes he
Yes.
might be fighting a bad guy, and if an innocent gets hurt, he's like, "Oh, well, maybe you shouldn't have been there." And so he brings, like, this he brings, like, this comedic almost, yeah, he's not a hero, but he kinda treads that line of hero and villain. He'll get the job done. It might cost us some lives, where the hero might look to try to save everybody, and then but who knows? Like, if the hero looks to save everybody and then something goes wrong, it could cause, like, a bigger catastrophe. I think Invincible plays this card really well with, like, the
Yes.
anti-hero because they're always talking about, like, Mark is always talking about, like, "Oh my god, if I do this and this is the right thing to do, but then it will cost me this," and he's always wrestling with stuff like that. Whereas when you have an anti-hero, they don't wrestle with stuff like that. They're just like, "This is what we gotta do. I'm gonna do it, and if there's, like, some casualties along the way, well, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few," right? And so,
Mm,
I think that, I think that's the enticing part of, like, the anti-hero in
right.
media.
And I mean, I don't know if you agree with this because I mean, as I am even writing my own stories, I find that I hate my heroes a little bit. And I don't know, like, and I don't hate them in the sense that I think that they're bad characters. I love 'em, but I also think that an anti-hero or a dark reflection, and video games love doing this. What do you got? You got Pit, Dark Pit, Link and Ganon. You got Sonic and Shadow. You got Mario and whatever random clone they decide to put him up against. Then you got, Kirby and Meta Knight or whatever dark Kirby they want to throw in. It's like they love doing this because at a certain point pure good just becomes boring. You want to see a character that's just like, okay, what if we take the hero and just threw them through the ringer? But we didn't do that to our main guy because we got to keep a franchise. Let's just make a character that's literally just that.
Exactly, exactly, and then what happens from there and what I've seen people do, and I myself have tried it, is you create that hero who is imperfect, right? You know, a character that is powerful but deeply human underneath it. You give them vulnerability, and it's the thing that makes, like, things like sacrifice meaningful and, like, love believable. I think, like, moral complexity comes from understanding that good people can make terrible choices for the right reasons, and damaged people can still choose to protect others. And that's where, like, everybody goes crazy for.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, I thank you for entertaining the discussion so far. But we are about halfway through, so I think it's about time for a groove break. When we come back, I found some interesting character quotes while stalking Miss Monroe's social media pages that really paint a vivid picture of how she writes relationships, and I just want to interrogate that a little bit. It's going to be an enlightening discussion that you don't want to miss. You're watching What's Going On with Dapper Don. Stay tuned. You're tuned in to What's Going On with Dapper Don. Don't touch that dial. And we're back, dear listeners. For those of you just now tuning in, we just got through talking about what inspired author J.F. Monroe to write her fantasy world with a focus on relationships, and what makes writing like that so compelling and addictive to readers. Now I want to jump into her process and how she writes those relationships. So these are some quotes I found interesting while scrolling through your social media page.
Okay.
And I do like the emphasis on character interactions with other characters in these quotes. So let's just start with this one. It doesn't have to be. We can have a day, Theo. Saving the world can wait one day. Now tell me about the context, what relationship it builds, and how it deepens your story.
My goodness. First of all, I loved, you acting that line out, so that's amazing. That is that is my main character, that is Shade, speaking to my other main character, Theo. They are childhood best friends, who were separated for about 10 years due to, wild fantasy thing that I incorporated into my story, and they reunited, and so they're on this epic journey together to stop this looming threat, and he is the leader of the 4 horsemen. He is the horseman of death, or he embodies the horseman of death, rather. And so that quote is her telling him basically he has a lot of burden, a lot of pressure on him throughout all of the books. I believe that is in the third book, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, and she's just she is his constant anchor and like his constant reminder to to breathe, to take it easy because he's always kind of like, go, 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 push, push, push. Let's keep going. Let's do this. Let's get this done. And sometimes he needs to kind of be reeled in and brought back. And so that quote was her basically telling him, like, we could take a day off. Like the world isn't going to shatter tomorrow. Like we can breathe for a second. We can pause. Uh, it was actually a really nice line. I do really love incorporating really quiet moments into my books just because there's so much going on, there's a lot going on, and so when I get to write those quiet moments, I really want them to be able to sit well with my readers.
Gotcha. Gotcha. What's interesting about this relationship is that this line feels like it would not be nearly as impactful if it was said by some random NPC stranger to Theo.
Right. Yeah, it wouldn't matter. He probably wouldn't even hear it, to be quite honest, like, because it's coming from her, whose words he values very much. he he will at least listen to it. He might not follow it because he's a little stubborn, but he will hear her. He will listen to it and he will try. That's the biggest thing with Theo. Like he will try his best uh, to take that deep breath, to give, a few hours dedicated to those quiet moments with her. So yeah, so 100%. Like if another character like Wyatt, who is the Horseman of War, if he would have said it, Theo probably would have like nodded and then disregarded it, to be quite honest.
Yes. Basically, Kratos, no.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Like, he hears you, but no, not gonna happen.
No, exactly. And honestly, that's somewhat interesting because, like, in writing, especially when we have a big narrative to get through, there's the tendency to, you got to bulldoze through all the threats. But you've
Yes,
created a situation where it would be very out of character for other characters to allow Theo, specifically Shade, to allow Theo to do this, which is, it also forces you to slow down and actually appreciate the world that you've created.
yes. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I honestly, these moments were almost giving myself permission to explore other things besides the journey, like, because the journey is
Mhm.
usually the fun part, right? You don't wanna get to the end. The end's the end. Who cares? But, like, the journey is where everything happens, and you gotta remember that even, like, Frodo had moments where he was eating and sleeping
Yes.
and talking to people and it wasn't all about, like, running away from the Uruk-hai or the orcs and, trying to evade, Sauron. He had moments, not many, but he had quiet moments. Or when
Exactly.
not right, not many, but he did. He had them. Or when Strider, goes to spend some time with Arwen. Like they have that scene, and it's a very quiet moment. It's not long, but it's necessary. You have to let your characters breathe a little bit, and in doing so, you let the reader breathe a little bit. So it's not just like constant. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. You don't want to overwhelm
Yes.
them too much.
Right. I myself am writing a very intensely dark story about a bunch of freak monsters, and I have comic relief characters. I have comic relief
Hmm.
characters in basically every arc. And one thing I constantly have to remind myself is, one, use your villains effectively, and most villains are effective in slow moments where they're just talking like people. And two, use your comic relief. Don't make them annoying, but use them. Comic relief is one of the writer's best benchmarks to say, we need to slow this scene down.
Agreed. That's a great way to allow your reader to breathe, right? Especially like you said, you're writing something very dark. My book gets dark too. But you have to be intentional. You can't be like if
Yes,
something is very serious, you cannot break it. You have to commit to that serious moment. But if there's like a fight going on and somebody drops like a real funny line or something while they're beating somebody else up. That could be completely effective. You have to just you have to know your characters and your setting well enough to know when to drop that comic relief and give your readers a break and give yourself a break and when to commit and just write that dark chapter. But when you write that dark chapter, try to offset it with the next chapter not being so ridiculously dark. Like always have that moment where you can allow
yes,
the reader to breathe, whether that's comic relief or just like a quiet moment. Allow it for the reader, allow it for yourself.
yep. And that reminds me of a scenario I saw, saw, and I kind of inspired, but basically inspired it and put it into a book. Basically, there's a horrifying moment right now in my story that's kind of inspired by some, video game tragedies I've seen, where a character is getting overtaken by a certain plant. And, it's very serious, very, but there's only one character that can save them, and that character's being hesitant. So you know what my comic relief character does because he has a healing factor? He's just the character that's being hesitant sends is like, okay, you do this. You're better at this emotional stuff. So then he's just like, he just looks angry at the hesitant character. And he's like sarcastic, like, okay, sure. Walks up, no guard, no shield, gets blown back by an attack, and then comes back damaged. Like, that really helped, didn't it?
Right, right. Like you're not thinking this through, buddy. Like I appreciated that the comic relief character though. committed to it so much that they were like, "Oh, you want me to do it? Okay, let's see how this happens. Like, let's see." And so I can imagine that that landed really well. Like, it wasn't the comic relief character just walking into death. Like, I don't think he would do that. That would kind of like break up the tension of the moment. But like, oh, okay, like let me show you why you're being hesitant and not thinking isn't helping anybody. And he just walks into that. I
Yeah,
would. That's a scene that I'd probably laugh at.
because it's just like it doesn't undercut the horrifyingness of the moment, but what it
Right.
does is it delivers the message to the audience that you all know what's happening. The answer is obvious what needs to happen. Like the hero knows what needs to happen. The person that's going to need to save this person being overtaken by this plant knows what needs to happen. But you're wanting to pretend anyways? Okay. All
Exactly.
right. Okay. Let's do it.
And
Let's play your game.
yeah, let's see how this plays out. But you know what? That keeps your hero very interesting. Like that hesitation gives you something to work off of because now you don't have the quote unquote Superman hero, right? That just would be like, no, I'm going to save that guy. No, you have someone who just hesitated to save somebody. That's huge. Like you can go so many different routes with that one part of that scene. Like you have the horror of this guy is about to be like consumed or taken over by this plant. But what the real horror is that your hero paused.
Yep. And then somebody else had to come in and be like, "Oh, okay, so we're pausing now. Oh, we're
Yeah,
pausing now. Okay,
yeah,
okay."
exactly. You gave him the job of the reader. Like all the readers are like, "Why are you pausing, sir? Like what is wrong with you?" And then you have this comic relief character kind of taking on the identity of the reader, which makes him very relatable. Like, "Oh, hey, I see you're pausing and now you're asking me to do it. Cool, cool. Let's see how this works out."
And then just kaboom, gets blown up. This character's a like a plush character, so he's leaking stuff, and then he just comes back, thumbs up. He's like, "Boy, this sure helped, didn't it?"
Right.
And
Right.
then,
Awesome.
that kind of,
Awesome idea.
and then, my main character is not the one. And that's another thing too. I could go on and on, but it's stuff like that that makes people get addicted to writing because it's stuff that, previously fantasy narratives didn't really do. It was very much straightforward. Like if somebody needed to save, if somebody needed to save, they were just getting saved. It was happening. There was no hesitation because nobody
Yep.
likes a wimpy hero.
Exactly. Exactly.
But yeah. Now the next quote, I don't know the context of this, so I'm really gonna need you to explain this because this does not seem PG-13. But
No.
let's just go in. Let's just get into it.
Okay.
Are you trying to make a mess? Is that what you want? To feel me all over you? Now, explain to me the context. What relationship it builds and how tell me how does it deepen the story there, Mrs. Monroe?
You got me you got me, like, red as a tomato over here. Okay, so that's Shade and Theo again, and I just wanna remind everybody, that I wrote a fantasy romance trilogy, and so there are scenes in my books that, have a little bit of spice to them, and so a lot of Shade and Theo's dynamic is remember, they were childhood best friends. He kinda got taken
Yes.
away from her from 10 years, that whole thing. Now he's back. And so a lot of their reconnecting sometimes portrays itself in the physical. And so that quote is one of those physical moments that they have with each other.
Mhm.
But which I will say, though that line in particular was a lot of fun, uh, usually in those moments that I also still consider quiet, the romance will never overshadow the journey, right? It's just
Right.
another part of it. And so, yeah, they have those moments of reconnection, but they'll always have like some type of dialogue afterwards where it's like, what do we do next? Where do we go from here? But it's just a real quiet moment. Like they're not wrestling with anything. There's no guilt. There's no fear for a little while. They don't have to grieve. They just kind of get to love. And so, yeah, it tends to be playful sometimes, and so they'll say things like how you lovely just, quoted it, but, and it all has meaning in the end. Like, even those parts drive the narrative forward.
Now, there are certain questions I have to ask in addendum to this because I've written them down.
Okay.
Would this quote have been the same if it was like the village old lady with like the head covering and the torn up dress? Just like would that have had the same impact? Listen, I have to ask it. It was written, okay?
That's hysterical. Totally okay, you can ask it. So, no, I'm gonna say a tentative no. I don't think it would have had the same impact if anybody would have said it other than Theo to Shade. It's very important that, especially as you're going into this trilogy, like Theo and Shade are it. They are end game for
End
lack of a
game.
better term. Like that's what they are. They're going to the end and they're going together. And so should he would never in a million years have said that to anybody else ever,
Yep.
including the
I mean,
village old woman.
the other horsemen are game too. I mean, if they're game, they're game. It's the apocalypse. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
100%, 100%, and I'm not saying the other horsemen wouldn't say something like that, but if it's Theo saying it to someone, it's only gonna be Shade, so
It's only gonna be shade. Right. 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 Now here's another line that seriously was I just found actually goated. Like it gave me shivers, because I love a good protection line. "Take your hands off her," he said, his words slow and deliberate, "or I'll put my hands on you, and I promise it won't end well or clean." Context, what
yeah.
relationship it builds, and how it deepens that story.
My gosh, yeah, that's Laz. That's the sin of sloth.
Mm-hmm.
That is my, I guess, quote, unquote, "anti-hero." He is my troublemaker. He joins the Horsemen after a few events happen, so he doesn't start with them. He's kind of like an outlier, and he comes in a little bit later, and he kind of forms a very deep bond with a lot of the Horsemen and Shade as well, uh, and a really deep friendship. And so when he's not serious, he's not a serious person, and so when things like that come out of his mouth, that's the end. I think that's towards the end of book 2, that line. That's a very dangerous thing for him to, like, you're in a lot
Yes.
of shit if he says that to you, just because he is the, hands in your pocket, lazy smile, lazy grin on your face, very chill, very
Right.
laid back individual. So when he says things like that, and I was actually really proud of that line. You're in danger. Like, there's trouble of brewing, and I think that Shade was the one that was in a little bit of danger with that individual, and then Laz had showed up and was like, "No, we're not gonna do this," and so he that was him threatening the individual. Um, and it was awesome. I actually that whole scene was really, really fun to write.
Yes. I imagine when you were writing it, it was just like the hair went up on your back, like, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yes. Yes. I swear, John, like, there's some times where things, and I'm sure you experienced it too. Like, you could write, and writing is great and writing is fun. And then there's like when you just lock in and you don't even
Mm,
understand how, like, something came out of you. I read that line sometimes and I'm like, who said this? Like, who came up with this? And
Sometimes,
it's
yeah,
one
I
of
know,
those
I
things
get it.
that, yep, it's
I
awesome.
get it, cause like, I could be writing something like a fight scene, and then, I'm out of lines, cause the characters talk while they fight. I'm out of lines, and then all of a sudden, "Oh, wait, this is some pretty good shit." And then I just
Yes.
do it, and then I look back at it, I'm just like, "That's why he's the GOAT!"
Yes,
I'm
yeah,
just
Laz, I'm gonna be honest, with my readers, Laz is a fan favorite, what you would call a fan
oh, I'm
favorite,
glad.
not gonna lie.
I would imagine. I would
Yeah.
imagine. 'Cause, we all do love a lazy character that knows how to lock in.
Yes,
There's just something about that dichotomy, but it's also
I love
very
it.
real too. It's also very real too because we've all had lazy caregivers, we've all had, like, lazy friends or something like that, if we were ever in, like, a verbal confrontation or something at school, they just jumped in. They just jumped in and they, with surprising anger, defended us.
100%, yeah, absolutely.
So that's definitely something that's very interesting. But that's all the quotes for now because I couldn't find any more 50 Shades esque ones. You got to work on that.
I'll work on it. I'll work on it just for you. I will work on it. I promise.
Yeah, you got a gift for it. You're not using your full potential. But when we talked earlier about the worlds and the people in them and how a lot of the immersion is in relationships, that kind of came up caused me to come up with a few questions here on the fly. So like when looking at a franchise like Harry Potter, what balance
Mhm.
do you see them striking between world building and character relationships?
This is such a good question. I'm not going to answer it right. I'm not. I'm just like right off the bat. You just said like be transparent. Like the world building in Harry Potter is so ridiculously good, and I just don't know if I have like the right words to describe it when it comes to talking about how it influences the characters. Like, oh man, I don't even know where to start. Like they go on this train on 9 and 3/4 platform, which was just, like, mind-blowing that they just it's on a regular train platform, but you go through the freaking pole, and you go out onto 9 and 3/4, and then you're getting on this train that's gonna take you to Hogwarts, and it's outrageous, the thought process behind, J.K. Rowling's world building. I don't think that I've ever seen quite much like it. And I think that it goes even beyond what I have watched and what I have read. I think the lore
Mhm.
just goes beyond that. And so when it comes to the characters, she has her pick of the litter. Like this world naturally influences all the characters except I will say Harry Potter in the beginning.
Right.
So, like, Ron, Hermione, they were all familiar with it. Draco, I'm sure other students were just familiar with this. But because Harry was denied entry into Hogwarts for a very long time, like, I think they, like, hid the letters or something from what I remember. When the letter finally did come, we got to go on this journey to Hogwarts with him. And I say Hogwarts, but I mean the world in which J.K. Rowling built. And, like,
Yes.
to see through his eyes what this world was, I don't know if I can fully express the magic involved in what she did for not only like the characters, but how lucky the readers were to kind of experience that.
Gotcha.
And that's my best take on it. I don't think I can give any
Right.
more.
Well, okay. Well, I guess I'll ask you this. Hopefully, it'll get more direct. Hopefully, it'll get like something. You're not feeling that way because you learned about the currency or the economic system. I'm assuming, you know,
Correct. Correct.
or what wars were fought. You're feeling that way because of the connection between, Harry, Ron, Hermione, that type of thing.
Yes, just that like that moment with all of them on the not even at Hogwarts, on the train where they all just kind of sat together and talked for a little while. It's just they started to build the rapport so quickly. And that way, when you got to Hogwarts, you already had the Ron Harry dynamic. It took a little while for Hermione to get on board, but they didn't drag that out, which I appreciated. Like she was I think she got insulted by them at one point, and then it was just like, boom, she's in. She's good. We're all good. There's your trio. And then it was just like, okay, we got the trio established. Boom. Now we have a problem. Harry Potter comes with his own backstory, but now it's I think Sorcerer's Stone was the first one. Now we have the basilisk problem that they didn't know of at first. It's just these kids are freezing, they're turning to stone, and it was incorporated so incredibly well into just the world of Harry Potter and the world of Hogwarts that it's one of my favorite series. I love Harry Potter so much just because of like how
Yes,
intricate the world building is in there.
absolutely. Now, speaking of, I've been curious throughout this whole conversation. When do you think the world building goes a little too far and overshadows even the characters that and the relationships that could be built?
That's a great question, and I do have an answer for this one, just because I have experienced this, and I swore to myself that when I experienced it, I would never do this to my readers. You can't you cannot dump world building onto me in, like, chunks. You have to spread it out and let me enjoy it as the story is taking place. I have read fantasies where they are like 800 pages. That's a doozy for me. But I can appreciate it if it's character driven, if you're taking me on a journey. But when the first 300 pages are just world building, I'm going to drop that book. Like I'm going to drop it really quickly. And it could be the best world building. It really could. But you're not going to capture me that way. Like that's just not going to get my attention the way building up a character is in the first couple of hundred pages or so. Like I'd much rather learn about the characters than the world building. So, world building is very intricate. It's very technical, but you're going to lose me if you bulk it together and just try to kind of like shove it down my throat all in the beginning before I even get to like these characters.
Yes, and the thing is for me, especially with stuff I read, I actually don't mind when there's like a moment of, wait a minute, what the hell happened? Why did this guy just randomly explode? And then a character's just like, well, when magic builds up in a person for too long. But see, that's the thing. We just saw something happen to a character we like, so of course we want to know why the hell did that happen. But
Exactly.
in the beginning, there's nothing I care about. So when you start me off with, in the world of Kerfluffleland, there were 300 wars, and I'm going to tell you about each one before we even hear the first character say good morning to his mother.
Yes, you nailed it. Yes, and believe it or not, a lot of fantasy does that. And I don't know why it drives me insane. And again, what's not my cup of tea could be somebody else's, and that's totally fine. But it takes me out of it. It pulls me from the story. So I
They,
prefer you just
yeah,
giving me like piece by piece.
they get that. They try. Okay, so I think I know where the origin of it is. It's like, okay, do you know H.P. Lovecraft, the origin of the Cthulhu mythos, stuff like that?
Do yes, I am
Yes,
familiar with it.
they get that. They try to steal that approach from him. And then there's another one that I speculate it to be Stephen King, because those two authors will front load their books with exposition. But here's the thing that they do. Here's the thing that they do that's different. They have a very engaging way of telling that exposition that naturally segues into, like, okay, every Stephen King book is in Maine. So he'll tell you about this town in Maine, tell you they're being terrorized by a creepy clown, and then show you a scene of, well, here's the creepy clown eating someone, you know?
Yes.
He won't just spend like 300 pages establishing that there's an evil clown. He won't tell you about every single fucking eon of the clown's life. He's just going to show the
Yes.
clown eating a boy's arm. What were you going to say?
Yes. I was gonna say that I totally agree with you on H.P. Lovecraft, and I do agree with you partially on Stephen King because one of my favorite books, oh my god, I just blanked on it, was what was his vampire book? Salem's Lot. Salem's Lot was one of my it's probably my favorite Stephen King novel. I ate that up. I loved it so much. In The Shining, this man spoke about a tree for at least 6 pages before he even got to introducing us to Danny, and I almost
Ugh.
threw that book out the window. I was so angry that he made me spend 6 pages on this tree that he had decided to describe in the middle of the Shining book. I was furious. And so I totally get where you're coming from on like in most of his books he gets good. Like he knows when to drop world building, lore, all of that stuff. But The Shining will always stand out to me because I was really excited to read that book. I had seen the movie first. That was a rarity. And I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh my god, let me go read the book." And when I just kept reading and I kept turning the page and I was like, it's still the tree. And I was so mad that I actually took a pretty long break from Stephen King for a while because I was so upset with him. Like, how could you do this to me? Get to The Shining. Like, I just want to read the book.
No, it's like
But
the
with
wood
me,
of the tree, the leaf of the
oh,
tree.
the leaves
Why is
and
it
how
still the
green they were.
fucking tree?
Done. I could not believe it. If I could go back, I wanna just look and see if I could find it. It was right in the front. It was just talking about a tree, and I was like, "What?" I felt like the main character going crazy. Like, I'm like, "Is he trying to get me in this mindset of, like, how this guy is losing his mind?" Because I am about to lose my mind.
It probably was, but the problem is You you want to simulate that. You don't want to actually create that, Mister.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because I will stand down your hall and I will ask you to come play with me forever. I don't give a shit.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I don't care.
Yeah. But no, and like with H.P. Lovecraft too, he likes to establish a lot of the cosmic stuff first. Then he descends down to whatever small country gutter town he wants to go to. The thing that H.P. Lovecraft does, though, that I can actually respect, even if I am flipping through pages and pages of stuff, is that he leaves a lot still unknown. For example, a color out of space, that whole concept of a color that's never been seen before. He's not
Right.
describing it, he's not saying it's a mix of anything. So when you're reading that and you're saying and you're seeing, oh, these are scary beyond fathoming, that's a little bit more intriguing than just in the 20th war in Flip Flop Land, here's something that'll never affect the main character ever. Ever.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
But yeah. Uh, now here's an interesting question. Have you seen any shit franchises with good world building or character dynamics? Or is a shit franchise always missing an element?
That's a good one. I mean, the thing that comes to mind that does this really well and then doesn't do it good at all is like the Marvel DC universe. Like, have I struck a chord? I listen. Hear me out. Hear me out first. Hear me out. I think that it's like a 50-50. It's a flip of the coin. Like I do think that Marvel does live action movies very well. But
Yes.
sometimes when they're trying to connect the worlds, like they'll throw in TV and I just like it's again, it goes back to like that rushing and not respecting the material.
Yep.
It really depends who you have behind the helm. And so sometimes they do this really, really well. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so immersed. This is great. This is fantastic. I'm screaming with the audience. And then other times I'm like, what were they smoking when they decided to do this? Like, why would they do this? And I'm going to give you two examples. So when they did Black Panther, that was
Oh
phenomenal.
boy.
I the first one.
Good
I
stuff.
thought that that
The
was
first
I
one,
thought that
yes.
that was really good. And when they did like the end game, that stuff, I thought that was brilliant. I was
Yes.
cheering when Captain America did all this stuff, and I was like, oh my god! And then Anthony Mackie was like, "On your left, Cap," and I was like, "Oh," you get emotional almost because
Yes.
it resonates really well with you.
He hits that
But
Avengers
yes,
assemble.
and
And I'm
he
just
nails it.
but you couldn't get
He
there
just
without the relationship. But we'll move on. We'll move on. You move on. It's like you couldn't
so
get
so
that.
yes, I agree. I agree. You couldn't get it without building the others, and I can accept that too. Like even the earlier Avengers, right? Wasn't the greatest in mind, but it set the stage. It set the foundation for
Yes.
what then became Endgame. So there is respect there for me. But then you take in Doctor Strange 2, right? Or 3. I don't know which one it is. Exactly. You see what I'm talking about? And that's where you have an opportunity to do literal it's Doctor Strange, man. Like you have an opportunity to do anything. You can do anything. He is Doctor Strange. And that's the story you chose. You got Professor X back. You got the Mr. Fantastic to cameo. And what have you done? Why did you
Well,
do this?
what kills me is that the movie didn't seem to know whether it wanted to be like a urban legend horror movie or like a
Exact,
sad universal lost story. And so when you see
exactly.
Mr. Fantastic and Black Bolt exploding and being shredded to pieces, and then in the next scene you see Wanda crying over her children, the
Yes.
tonal mismatch doesn't come off as well as it did in WandaVision.
Exactly, and then you think about the world building. It was all over the place, and so it
Mhm.
didn't work. And then with DC, I'm gonna keep it real brief on this one. I don't understand how they cannot translate the animated series of DC to live action. The script is right there. The animation for DC is phenomenal. It knocks anything I've seen out of the park. And
Yeah.
the fact that they cannot translate that to live action drives me crazy. Not to say that there's not some DC movies that aren't fun and good, cool. I really like Peacemaker. That was the TV show. I had a good time with that. But you have it. It's there. The script is right there. You just need to make it live action. And for some reason, DC can't do it. And so it's that world building fail of like it's there. The world is there. You just cannot translate it properly. So
Well,
yeah, those are my examples.
I see you DC when you brought up DC, I started like having an internal like cuz Black Adam, right? Like that movie was ruined because The Rock has an ego. He wanted Black Adam to be a Superman villain. Black Adam is not specifically a Superman villain. If we're specifically talking who specific antagonist he is Billy Batson's aka
Right.
Shazam's.
Yes. Yes.
But so it's like that's part of it. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. But honestly, with DC in general, when the topic comes up for their movies or their games or their 50 billion crisis events, the question just comes to mind. How many times are we gonna fight the fucking Joker? That's why I can't talk
Yes.
about DC.
But you're right. It's like how many times? Like stop reusing it. There's so much material. You know what they got right? And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, it wasn't really I feel bad giving them credit because it's really not them, the Penguin TV series.
Yes.
That was incredible. I have absolutely nothing negative to say about the Penguin TV series. I thought that was just absolute fire. Like it was perfect. I think I still quote it to this day because it just like I laugh and then I get like nauseous because I'm like, why am I laughing? He's awful. Like he's an awful human being, but it's just what a that's how you do it. That's how you build the world. And I just wish that more people could do that.
Well, and it's just like what we were talking about with relationships. If you keep certain characters the same and keep the same dynamic going too long, you run into a situation where now it's detrimental to both characters. Because why has it's like people say, well, Batman killing the Joker, he's gonna go as crazy as the Joker. That is not the character that we've been established. That is not the
Yeah.
character that we've established. That is the character that we've established is somebody who could probably snap the Joker's neck easily and then go drink some coffee with Alfred after. That was the character that was established to us. And yet we keep coming back to the damn piece of shit Joker. I don't care how good fucking Joaquin, fucking Mark Hamill, fucking whoever does it. I don't care.
I hear you.
I don't know. I don't know. We we, we got to move on because I could get very
We
uh,
can move on. I can too. I told you I could fall down these rabbit holes all day.
ugh. But anywho, uh, let me because I'm starting to sweat. So we are going to go ahead and jump into our final thoughts, and that is, what is the worst thing a new author can do when trying to craft a fantasy world? Just period. Other than getting the balance wrong, of course.
Yeah. I would say give up. That's like the worst
Mm-hmm.
thing you could do. Don't give up. Like your mindset is very important when writing a fantasy story. Like I would never put anyone down for trying one or saying like, "Listen, this might not be for you." That's never going to come out of my mouth. You want to write a fantasy story, you write your fantasy story. Do not give up. The worst that you could do is you write it and you're just not ready to publish it yet, right? And then you find an editor or you find a friend who you tell, and I did this. So I speak from personal experience. I found my niece and I was like, "You are the only one I trust to read this. And if you think that publishing it is a terrible idea because it's crap, you need to tell me because you're not going to make me look like a fool." And she was like, "I got you." And she read all
Mm-hmm.
three books. And in all three ways, she was like, "You should publish this. I would never let you look any way but I think that these books are worth reading and I think that you should publish it." And so that's what I would tell any amateur fantasy author, someone trying to dip their toes into writing a book, any creative thing actually, don't give up. Like, do it. And worst case, it stays on your laptop and you don't publish it for a while. And maybe you edit it here and there. And then you find that person you trust and you have them read it. And you take some feedback, you get some advice, and then you make your decision. But don't give up on it because if you feel like you've got a story to tell, then it's worth telling. That's good enough. And that was kind of like how I went through all three of my books, to be quite honest.
Mm-hmm. And I think to add on to that, if you find yourself at a point where you're giving up because like, oh, how am I going to establish this? What's this? What's that? What currency do they use? Then you need to stop. You need to stop and think like, okay, wait a minute. What character, how much am I contributing to the characters with this? And how much is just me trying to appeal to people who don't have jobs?
Yes.
You know,
Yeah. 100%
it's like
actually. Yes.
only somebody who doesn't know how to use Indeed would be sitting there worried about what currency you're using. Just make them use gold and give the monster a backstory. End of
There you
like
go.
end of it. Like
I listen, that advice is so sound because I did find myself getting lost in the nuances of the fantasy. Like, I'm like, what should I do here? And it was so minuscule. Like, it was just so not necessary. I was like, who in their right mind is going to care about this? And if they do care about it, that says more about them than it does about me. So you're absolutely right. Like, if you are stuck on that, honestly, just Google and be like, what's different forms of currency that I can use? And you can pick one from there. Like, it's not a big deal. It is a fantasy world for a reason. You can make up a word and it will work.
yes.
Like, it will work for you.
Or I mean, because it's like, yeah, you should not be sitting there. It's like, I don't necessarily care who founded your country. What does the founder have to do with the character's journey now? If it doesn't
Yes,
relate to that character that we wake up with in the morning with the crust in their eyes, I don't care. At least not
exactly.
right now. Not until a
Exactly.
villain comes along that's a descendant of the founder or something like that. Other than that, I
Yeah.
don't care.
Yes. Agreed. I agree.
So yeah, but with all that being said, where can they find your work and any other books or things that you've written?
Yeah, no problem. My trilogy is complete. It is on Amazon. It is you could get a physical copy on Amazon. You can get a Kindle Unlimited. It's on there for free, and it is also recently the entire trilogy is on Audible as well. So if like listening to books is more your thing, you can go ahead and get it there. And then you can find me on social media. I have Instagram and TikTok. It's at jf.monroe. And I have a website as well. It is jfmonroebookshelf.
Okay, perfect. And that's all going to be linked in the description as well. It was great having you on. I really appreciated your insight into things. You brought out boy, did you bring out a side of me that I usually don't like to bring out on these.
I told you I could, so I'm glad that I did. It's awesome.
Boy, yeah, I mean, there's chaos in them, but I usually try to be, a little bit more professional on the interview side of things. You made me feel like I just had a co-host, and that's wonderful.
It's awesome. That's awesome.
But anywho, that is all for today's show. So if you like this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe. My socials and Miss Monroe's website will be linked in the description, as well as who helped put this episode together. Follow us everywhere so you don't miss a beat, and tune in next Sunday at 6:30 p.m. for an all-new What's Going On with Dapper Don. You don't want to miss what I have in store. Peace out.